I know basically what I've read and what I've been informed on. Naturally, I'm very eager.
On July 13, 1972, Robert Irsay took control of the Baltimore Colts in one of the most historical transactions in sports history. Determined to make his venture a long-term success, Irsay hired the dynamic Joe Thomas as general manager. Joe Thomas had designed and built two champions, the Vikings and the Dolphins, and he will try to make it 3 for 3 as the brains behind the new Baltimore Colts.
Baltimore's Memorial Stadium is home to a legend named John Unitas, who last week began his 17th season, needing only 63 yards to make an even 22 miles of passing yardage in his NFL career. The St. Louis Cardinals countered with a slightly lesser-known quarterback. Number 16, Tim Van Galder, was still looking for his first NFL passing yard, despite 5 years in the Cardinal organization. A taxi squad veteran, Van Galder won the starting job over Gary Coazzo and Jim Hart during training camp. And on his first play in his first regular season game, he set out to make up for lost time. Jackie Smith's miscue spoiled the storybook start, and the thugs of the brutal Colt defense rose up to crush Van Galder's offense. The Cardinals could manage only 17 first-half yards, while number 19 was proving to be the Johnny U of old. He led his team to an overwhelming statistical edge. But each Colt drive stopped short with a turnover. Even the usually reliable Jim O'Brien, number 80, fell prey to the comedy of errors. O'Brien missed 2 short field goals and had 2 others blocked, while Unitas was driving his team anywhere he wanted except over the goal line. Larry Wilson's painful interception kept the Colts at bay, and Van Galder finally decided to try Jackie Smith one more time. Smith made his amends, and number 44, Donnie Anderson, squeezed over to give the Cardinals a 10-3 victory. Despite being buried in every category but points, the Cardinals had their first win, and now Tim Van Galder needs but 38,610 more yards for his first 22 miles passing.
In the process of rebuilding, the 1972 Colts suffered through one of the darkest hours in their history. From the outset, they were devastated by injuries like the one that kept Bubba out for the season. Despite injuries, despite an experimenting changing lineup, Baltimore's Memorial Stadium was the scene of many an exciting Sunday afternoon in 1972. There was that afternoon in September when 2 masters met and painted a canvas unlike any seen before. That incredible September the 24th, when the student in white faced his venerable professor in black in an aerial circus that will never be forgotten. Number 19 was superb. His 26 completions were a career record. His 376 yards passing were the 4th highest in his career and added to his NFL record of 27 games in which he has surpassed 300 yards in the air. Unitas passing, coupled with a scintillating touchdown by Don McCauley, produced 34 points, the most the Colts have ever scored in defeat. For the problem on this day was that the student had learned well and far surpassed his teacher. This was the day Joe Willie Namath abused the record books. 6 touchdowns, 496 yards. He and Unitas combined for 872 yards, the best in NFL history. And Joe Namath left with a 44-34 victory in a game never to be forgotten.
They call him the Little Giant. He's Weeb Ewbank, coach of the New York Jets, and he's seen a lot happen in his pro football career. Last week, he came back to Baltimore to face Don McCafferty's Colts, and any time the two teams meet, Ewbank's role comes to mind. He's the man who coached the Colts and Johnny Unitas through their glory years, then went to New York and brought Joe Namath to the Jets and defeated his old team in the first AFL Super Bowl victory, a key factor in bringing about a merger of the two leagues. Since then, the Colts have remained strong, while Ewbank's Jets have been up and down. But any time the two teams meet, the greatest interest has to be the anticipated duel of two pairs of shoes and the men who fill them. Johnny Unitas and Joe Namath have never really gone head-to-head for a whole game. In the Super Bowl, Unitas didn't play until the end, and since then, it is said, he has been on the decline. The Colts and Jets have played 4 times since then. The Colts have won all of them, but Joe Namath missed 3 of those games. In the 4th, he broke his hand before the game was over. And so last week, Namath was healthy and ready to try his golden hand once again at defeating the man he idolized as a kid. The man who was voted the greatest quarterback of the century, who plays for a team with the best pass defense in the league. Wherever Namath goes, his followers come to watch and enjoy the proceedings. Last week, they should have brought champagne. In the first quarter, both teams would score only once. Namath tried to run John Riggins early, but he knew he'd have to pass because the Colts defense is practically invincible against the run. On his quick drop back, the pass was perfect, allowing Bell to slow up and catch it while both Colt safeties, Rick Volk and Jerry Logan, slipped, and Bell outraced Charlie Stooks to the end zone. It was unusual enough to see the Colts' deep zone beaten for a touchdown at all, let alone this early in the game. But it was only the beginning. In the Super Bowl. They didn't see it then, and they wouldn't see it now. The flea flicker from Unitas to Matty, back to Unitas to Sam Havrelak would have backfired if Unitas hadn't made the best catch of his career. In the Super Bowl, Earl Morrall didn't see Jimmy Orr all alone and threw an interception that turned the game in the Jets' favor. This time it worked to perfection, and the Colts took a 7-6 lead. Then on the last play of the quarter, the Colts would get a chance to increase the lead as Roy Hilton pinched in from the right for a rare sack of Namath. The Colts recovered, and the first quarter ended with Baltimore's defense looking as tough as ever. They had really given only one bomb on which 2 defenders slipped, and they now gave the Colts offense the ball on the Jets' 27. After the fumble, Unitas moved to the Jets' 9. But from here, a problem the Colts had on opening day and one they would have in this game became evident. Unitas couldn't take the team into the end zone. 3 plays failed, and they settled for a field goal and a 10-6 lead. The next time they had the ball, the same thing happened. Unitas to Mitchell took them between the 20s as Mitchell, the man who forced John Mackey to be cut, often was open, getting between the cornerbacks and safeties. But again, the Jets' defense tightened up near the goal. Mark Lomas, number 84, got to Unitas on 2nd down from the 18. And on 3rd down, seeing Tom Matty covered, Unitas turned and went for Spirer. But sophomore Rich Sowles, number 46, saved a score. The Colts again settled for a Jim O'Brien field goal. But this was the 2nd straight series. They came away with 4 points less than they could have, a fact which would be forgotten in the barrage of yardage that was to follow. On the play, Roy Hilton got his hand up in Namath's face, but Joe Willie fired a perfect 40-yard strike to set back Riggins, who easily beat Lonnie Hepburn to the goal, answering any doubts as to John Riggins' speed. The Jets had tied the score at 13. New York then kicked the ball into the end zone, but was penalized, and Howfield had to kick again. It proved to be a 100-yard penalty, for Don McCauley took the gift kickoff all the way. McCauley's speed, too, has been questioned, but this return seemed to answer that issue and put the Colts back on top, 20-13. Although the kicking game would be overshadowed by other facets, it continued to play a key role. Found Don Maynard for his only catch of the game, a touchdown. Problems, Unitas' offense lasted one play after the score. Sacked by Philbin, Lomas recovered for the Jets on the Colts' 10, in another key play by the defense, which would perhaps be forgotten. Namath hadn't thrown too many 10-yarders in this game, but this one, like the 40-yarders, also came quick and easy. Rich Castor screened out Logan and made the catch. In just 3 minutes, the game had seen 4 touchdowns. Namath had thrown 67, 28, and 10-yard scores in the span, giving him 4 for the half, good for 281 net yards passing against a secondary that normally gives up 3 or 4 touchdown passes in a season. Bell and Maynard got mixed up on their pass patterns, and Namath's long bomb fell into a crowd of Colts. Jerry Logan came up with an interception to end the Jets' threat. 14-yard chip shot that increased New York's lead to 10 points, 30-20. And the rookie from American International took the ball up the right sideline to his own 44. Now at the start of the fourth period, with excellent field position for the first time in the second half, Unitas turned to his heretofore non-existent running game again. This time it worked, as Norm Bulash watched helplessly from the sideline, incapacitated with a pulled thigh muscle. Nottingham and Matty nickeled and dimed their way down the field to the New York 1. Here, a third setback was added, and it was he, Don McCauley, who got the call for the touchdown. For all their third quarter inefficiency, the Colts were back in the ball game and trailed by just 3 points. A repeat shows Namath had to unload quickly, and Lonnie Hepburn just missed making the save. After that, it was all Rich Castor, as the big tight end went in for the score with Rick Volk trailing him. With startling suddenness, the Jets had regained their 10-point lead. Hit Cotton Spire at the sideline for first down. Spire was starting in place of Eddie Hinton, another of the Colts' injured brigade today. Unitas stayed with the safe, short sideline passes as he expertly picked his spots and moved his team downfield. Then, on the Jet 22, he faked to Nottingham and lofted the ball in the flat to Matty. The grand old man had done it. The Colts were back in the game. First down, Broadway Joe Namath went for the bomb and got it. His slingshot found Rich Castor again, and the 6'5" converted tight end scored an 80-yard touchdown, his third of the day. This was finally the play that broke the game open, and Joe Namath seemed to realize it as he happily returned to the bench to congratulate Rich Castor. Across the field on another bench, another quarterback had a different reaction.
Until last week in Buffalo, the Colt defense had not looked like the Colt defense of old. But in the Bills, they were playing a team that hadn't scored against them in 10 quarters, or 2.5 games. And the Baltimore defense felt that the record should be extended as they shut off O.J. Simpson. An interception by number 83, Ted Hendricks, shut down a Bills attack that managed only 13 yards total offense in the first half. Baltimore's offense was handled in the air by the John Unitas to Tom Mitchell combo, which struck for 7. On the ground, it was number 48, Don Nottingham, who took care of business as he gutted out 141 yards in total offense. And number 17, Sam Havrelak, applied the finishing touch as the Buffalo scoreless string versus the Colts moved to 14 quarters, or 3.5 games. Colts 17, Bills 0.
17-0 was the other shutout over Buffalo earlier in the year, extending the Colts streak to 14 shutout quarters over the Bills.
In the NFL, there are many deep and bitter rivalries, but in Baltimore last week, the Colts were downright hostile toward the visiting Chargers. First, the Colts ganged up on number 37, Sid Edwards. Next, number 76, Fred Miller, took Edwards' shoe off. Then number 21, Rich Volk, threw it away. About this time, Sid was probably wondering if the Colts were trying to tell him something. But Baltimore was not about to be pleasant to anyone wearing yellow pants, including ex-Colt John Mackey, number 89. Homecoming was not pleasant for the old Baltimore superstar as his ex-teammates stripped him clean. Actually, Baltimore is not usually this inhospitable, but the Colts were frustrated by their worst start in a decade, and the Chargers happened to be around to pay for it. The aroused ponies pilfered 3 San Diego passes and snatched away 2 fumbles to provide John Unitas with plenty of field position. Number 19 turned to the human bowling ball. Bouncy Don Nottingham, number 48, rolled wild for 85 yards and 2 touchdowns. While Nottingham, Unitas, and San Diego errors put 20 Colt points on the board, San Diego stayed close with a darting burst of its own stumpy little runner Mike Garrett, number 20. Garrett scrambled and scraped for 134 yards and 2 touchdowns to bring the Chargers within 3 at 20-17 in the 4th quarter. Then the Colts did something they never used to do. They gave the game away. The normally poised Colts collapsed and fumbled twice in the final 4 minutes. Each time, Dennis Partee converted the gift into a Charger field goal. The last coming with 7 seconds left in the game to give San Diego a 23-20 upset victory. The Chargers had won a road game for the first time in their last 13 tries, but the gift victory left them still in search of a true identity. This week in Miami, they should find out how good they really are. Following in the familiar crab steps of their legend, the Baltimore Colts came out possessing a very unfamiliar losing record. Though 4 weeks had produced but one victory, the Colt linebackers remained an unmatched triumvirate. Ray May, number 56, still blew in hard and fast from the right side. And number 83, Ted Hendricks, still tried to turn setbacks into headless horsemen. In the middle, Mike Curtis still read and reacted to the quarterback's eyes. But while the defense clings fast to their legendary greatness, it is on offense where the legend has withered.
The Jets-Colts series already has a rich tradition behind it, and last year's games did nothing to damage it. Marty Domrey's made his starting debut the second time the two played, and found himself in a swirl. The Jets took a 2-touchdown lead on the exciting catches of Rich Castor, the remarkable running of John Riggins, and the superb play calling of Namath. But Domrey's resurrected the Colts and passed them into a 2017 lead with time only for one last drive. Namath went for it all, a 50-yard prayer. It was answered by little Eddie Bell, who could not contain his joy and set off a celebration not seen since the Beatles appeared here so long ago. How sweet it was.
The next time the two teams met, there were new faces, but the same old excitement. John Sandusky debuted as coach, and Marty Domrey's premiered as a starter. The game began as a replay of that September the 24th monument, with the Jets jumping out to an early lead. But the Colts hung in there. David Lee's exceptional punting kept New York deep in its own territory and allowed Domrey's to chip away at the lead. Domrey's performed masterfully in his debut, and he and Jim O'Brien led a comeback that overtook the Jets 20-17 with a minute left. Then the Colts were stung on a desperation heave that took a New York bounce, and the game appeared to be over. time for one play and hoping for Lady Luck to accommodate him as she had Namath, Domray sent up a prayer. Incredibly, it was caught by John Mosier, but died on the 2-yard line. So close, yet so far. And for the young Colts, a 24-20 defeat.
The San Francisco faithful have been somewhat fickle this year, simply because the 49ers have not been the kind of team one could have much faith in. Their season has been a schizophrenic 3-4-1, so no one knew what to expect against the stumbling Baltimore Colts. Steve Spurrier to Ken Willard kept the Colts stumbling as the 49ers heaped more woes on the already dismal year of Baltimore's descent. Number 22, Vic Washington, ran roughshod through the once impregnable Colt defense. Then number 35, Larry Schreiber, rocked in for a score, and suddenly San Francisco's fair-weather faithful had returned. But Baltimore stayed in the game with one bizarre play. Bruce Gossett's kickoff made it only as far as the Colt blocking wedge, where one blocker happened to be running back Norm Bulash, number 36. Bulash was caught from behind, but got off a nifty bounce pass to Nelson Muncy, number 31. The famous Bulash to Muncy combination was not in the Colt game plan, but it was much more reliable than the regular Colt attack, which continues to grope for identity. Number 14, young Marty Domrys, is trying to replace a legend. Place kicker Jim O'Brien, number 80, is trying to be a wide receiver. And ex-assistant John Sandusky is now head man and just trying to bear the grief of it all. What John Sandusky has just seen is a 4th and goal from the San Francisco 1. One man feels the pain of the Colt struggle more acutely than anyone else. That's because Johnny Unitas remembers. He remembers other days when things like this never would have happened. John Unitas came in for one play, fumbled, and did not play again. Number 11, Steve Spurrier, continued to taunt the Colts as he threw into perfect coverage. But these days, perfect is not quite good enough for the Colts as Ted Qualick came up with the ball for a 24-14 49er lead. Finally, Domrys found a patch of blue in the gloom as he went on the fly to Sam Haverlack, number 17. The Domrys-Haverlack connection put Baltimore back in the game, trailing by only 24-21 with 4.5 minutes left. And when Domrys got the ball again, he went right back to the wide-open well. This time, however, Haverlack was judged out of bounds, and Baltimore had discovered yet another way to lose. 3 more passes failed before time ran out, and the stunned Colts found themselves 1-7. For nearly 2 decades, the Baltimore Colts were on or near the top of their profession. Now, painfully, they're learning how the other half lives.
The 24-20 defeat at Shea marked the beginning of a series of games that could have gone either way. In San Francisco, the 49ers jumped to a big halftime lead by running right through the Colts. Their only score, a fluke kickoff return touchdown from Bulash to Nelson Muncy. In the second half, however, Domrays rallied the Colts with a pinpoint passing display to number 17, Sam Havrelak. Havrelak caught 6 passes for the year's best performance by a Colt receiver and rallied his team to within 3. Domrays drove the Colts toward the winning score, but Havrelak was ruled out of bounds on the 12, and the game was over.
Considering the weather in Cincinnati last Sunday, you had to question the ground crew's strategy. Perhaps they were adding insurance for the slips, muffs, and fumbles that would follow in their game against Baltimore. Actually, the Colts negotiated the synthetic slush rather well, with Don McCauley gaining nearly 100 yards while adding to his league lead in yards gained by sliding. In a game that was not decided until the final gun, the Bengals drew first blood when quarterback Ken Anderson rolled out over and through the Colts' inconsistent defense. Both teams have been on the decline and fall. The Colts all season, the Bengals only recently. Marty Domrays and Jim O'Brien beat the Bengals defense that used to be number 1 to tie the game. A few field goals later and the Bengals led 13-10. Then the Colts unveiled Lydell Mitchell, number 26, and he put Baltimore back on top early in the 4th period. Cincinnati regained the lead on Doug Dressler's 1-yard plunge, but the extra point was blocked and the score was 19-17. Marty Domrays had a minute to move the Colts into field goal range for Jim O'Brien to try and get the Colts' 3rd win of the season. The Colts had lost 2 last-second games recently, but this time O'Brien was the hero. The 1-point loss all but killed the Bengals' playoff chances, while the Colts are still waiting for next year. Baltimore 20, Cincinnati 19.
A week later against the Bengals came another case of last-minute excitement. In a battle of number 14s, Ken Anderson put the Bengals in the lead. But the Colts came back in the arm of Domrays and the legs of Lydell Mitchell, who scored a touchdown on his first NFL rushing attempt. With minutes left, the Bengals took a 19-17 lead on a sneak, but Ted Hendricks blocked the extra point and gave the Colts a chance to win on their final drive. In his own hometown, Jim O'Brien came through for the Colts as time ran out.
New England interim head coach Phil Bingston did not walk into Memorial Stadium with long, confident strides. And like their coach, the Patriots traveled in short, choppy steps and mostly backwards. Only once did the Patriots threaten, but their field goal attempt fell woefully short, and the rejuvenated Colts cavorted in the gleeful manner of their rich past. Marty Domrys, the AFC's leading passer, threw for 3 touchdowns against the undermanned Pats defense. 2 TDs were caught by Sam Haverlack, number 17, a converted halfback and quarterback. And the third went to tight end Tommy Mitchell after a pretty play-action fake to Don McCauley. For sophomore quarterback Jim Plunkett, it was another day of disaster. Plunkett was chased, driven into his blockers, and then nailed by a right cross by number 79 Jim Bailey. Whenever Plunkett was forced to scramble, his path to the safety of the sidelines was cut off and he was brutalized. On one rare occasion when he was protected, Plunkett was betrayed by John Tarver, whose muff fell into the grasp of Mike Curtis. After 4 feeble quarters, the Patriots fell to the rebounding Colts 31-0.
Though victories were few, the Colts came up with their usual supply of shutouts. Against New England in November, the Colts' defense was superb, batting the ball around their secondary and battering Jim Plunkett all over Memorial Stadium. Led by Roy Hilton and Jim Bailey, Plunkett was sacked 3 times and had an equal number intercepted. Domrys, meanwhile, went to 127 straight unintercepted passes and threw 3 scores as Baltimore won 31-0.
In Baltimore this year, a once proud dynasty had hit the skids. But suddenly, led by a rejuvenated defense, the Colts have turned their season around. Against the Buffalo Bills, number 20 Jerry Logan intercepted to start the Baltimore onslaught. The youth movement, led by number 14 Marty Domrys, caught fire early as Domrys hit number 23 Don McCauley for 2 scores that in themselves would have been enough to assure victory over the Bills. Another part of the Colts youth movement is number 26 Lydell Mitchell, the former Penn State teammate of Pittsburgh's Franco Harris, who is finally coming into his own. But as important as the defense, McCauley or Mitchell are, it is Marty Domrys who leads the Colts now, and it's Domrys who initiates the big plays. And so it came to pass that when the Baltimore wise men saw that the game was out of the Bills' reach, a fading star appeared in the east. And for number 19, the one they called the Man, or the living legend, it was probably the last time he would ever enter a game for the Baltimore Colts in Baltimore. Fittingly, the last pass John Unitas threw for the hometown fans went for a touchdown. True, it was only the great effort of Eddie Hinton that made it a score, but nonetheless, in the record books, it will always read Unitas to Hinton, 63 yards for a touchdown. It only seemed right that John Unitas should leave Baltimore the way he entered it all those years ago. For no matter what the Colt record reads or how big a part he played, John Unitas was truly a winner for all seasons.
In their second game against Buffalo, the Colts made it 18 quarters minus 1 play of shutout defense. The Bills scored on the last play of the game. Till that time, the Colts defense was invincible, while John Unitas bowed out with his final touchdown in blue and white, a pass which Eddie Hinton took 67 yards to a touchdown. But it was fitting that this game really belonged to the young Colts, the Colts of the future. Number 23, Don McCauley, scored twice, fighting off a blindside shot on one reception. Lydell Mitchell also scored, and by now had established himself as a real threat. And Marty Domrez was Offensive Player of the Week, throwing for 3 and running for 1, giving a preview of what to expect from the young Colts in '73. Entering Memorial Stadium next year will be a new experience, for Joe Thomas has consolidated his troops under the aegis of a new and talented head coach, former Miami Dolphin Howard Schnellenberger. Schnellenberger brings the spirit and sagacity of a Super Bowl champion to Baltimore, and with him will come a superior Colts draft from college. Number 44, Bill Olds, comes from Nebraska, hopeful of starting in the Colts backfield. Number 57, All-American linebacker Jamie Rotella, comes from Tennessee, along with Joe Ehrman from Syracuse and Mike Barnes from Miami to beef up the defense. And finally, Burt Jones comes from LSU to battle Domrez for the right to lead the Colts offense. Burt Jones, everybody's All-American quarterback, a talented 21-year-old who can do it all. Burt Jones, Lydell Mitchell, Marty Domrez, Bubba Smith, all of the Colts have inherited a legacy that presents a formidable challenge, a challenge they will try to meet as a new era in Baltimore begins.